Today I'm here with digital marketing celebrity Jay Baer, who's created 5 multi-million-dollar companies and is the president of Convince and Convert, a consulting firm that helps the world's most iconic brands like the United Nations, Adidas, 3M, and Oracle. Jay is a New York Times best-selling author of 5 books, and today he's going to be sharing all of the great things we've learned in his book, Hug Your Haters, with you. Growing a small business isn't easy, and to be successful, we know 3 things for sure. You have to work hard, you have to be bold, and you must constantly learn. We're gathering some of the best minds in the business world to share their ideas and strategies with you so you can grow your business easier, be more profitable, and have a lot more fun being a business owner. We're on a mission to connect the world of wellness, and this is the Mind Body Bold Show. What's up, everybody? Mike Arce here, and welcome back to another episode of The Bold Show. And I am here with Mr. Jay Baer, one of the top guys, most recognized influencers out there when it comes to customer service and using social media to be able to deliver an amazing experience for not only your customers, but any onlookers for your company. What's up? Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Mike. Ready to be bold.
Ready to be
Make
bold.
it happen.
Let's do it. Okay, so now you just wrote a great book called Hug Your Haters, which I loved. I've read it a couple times
Artfully
now.
placed here on the shot. Nice job, Mark.
It's coincidence, pure coincidence. But I thought it was incredible because there were just tons of stats that went into this that I don't think the average local business owner really understands how customer service plays a role in the success of their company.
Yeah, you know, there's a funny story about that. So the book was not originally supposed to be called Hug Your Haters.
Okay.
Because I had a whole different thesis, a whole different premise for the book when I started writing it. The idea was that speed is the most important thing, that speed is the killer app, that companies that are fastest are bestest, that we're in this environment now that if you're quick and nimble, you will succeed, and that is the most important thing. But unlike most authors, I thought, you know what I should do? Before I write a whole book about this, I should make sure that's actually true. So I worked with a company called Edison Research. We did this huge study on the science of complaint. We talked to thousands of Americans, about who complains and where they complain and why they complain and how. And what I discovered, Mike, was that it's not actually true. Not as true as I thought. So speed is definitely important. I talk about that in the book. But it's not the most important thing. The most important thing is to just show up, right? It turns out that 1/3 of all complaints are never answered. Never. And no response is a response, right? No response is a response that says, we don't care about your complaint enough to even acknowledge it.
Right.
And that's the bigger issue. So that's why the title of the book switched from Under an Hour, which is the original title, to Hug Your Haters. And it's much more about making sure that you're answering every customer in every channel, every time, especially social media.
And you've interviewed over 40 companies in order to
all
really
different kinds. Yeah.
And the research that went into this was an incredible study. And we have a ton of stats that we're going to be able to go through today in this episode.
It's a special math episode. Yeah.
Well, I just feel like when the stats, are there, they tell a different story. They make things more real.
Look, here's the thing. And there's a lot of great customer service books. Some of them are on this shelf. But most books in customer service are sort of distilled wisdom, right? It is common sense. Like, here's how you handle people if they're upset, and here's how you treat customers. Well, that doesn't make them a bad book, but there's no science around it. This book is really rooted in research and science, and it's really the first book that's about modern customer service, because it really does talk a lot about social media and WhatsApp and WeChat and all these different ways that you can communicate to customers that, frankly, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, wouldn't even have been an issue.
Right. One of the things that I've learned as a trend, and I'm sure you have too, because you've worked with a ton of local business. I've worked with a few hundred already. And whenever you ask them, hey, tell me about your customer service, the service you provide to your customers, they all say, a service is great. Customers love us.
All of them,
right? There's not one business owner out there that doesn't think that their customer service is great. They just need more leads, right? And what your book stated, your research, was that 80% of businesses believe they give superior customer service. However, only 8% of businesses have their customers saying that their business is superior.
Yeah.
Yesterday's great is today's mediocre.
80%. That's actually research from Bain that I cite in the book, but 80% say that they deliver not okay, superior customer service, and 8% agree. Mike, that's like the stat, maybe you've seen this, that says that 71% of people say that they're excellent drivers. And there's no way that's true, right? That we all know that's not true, but everybody believes it. customer service is the same way. Like no business owner thinks their customer service is bad, but yet,
or even not great.
Right. But yet as consumers, right, we all know that customer service is manifestly mediocre all the time, right? So it's just like a weird disconnect.
You know, one of the things too that you talk a lot about was competition in the area. So you can say, oh yeah, but we're better than that guy. Oh yeah, but the guy down the street, he doesn't even do this, he doesn't even do that. But it's not so much, your competition isn't necessarily your direct competition is your competition. Everyone's your competition because customer service, the bar is being raised on all platforms.
Yeah, there's term called liquid expectations.
Okay.
Customer expectations are liquid now. What that means is that customer expectations slosh between categories, right?
Okay.
So people don't think about customer service in the context of a fitness studio or in the context of a dentist or in the context of a lawyer or a collision repair shop. They think about customer experience and customer service in the context of all businesses. So in a very real sense, Zappos, Southwest Airlines, Nordstrom, Ritz-Carlton, companies like that are teaching your customers what to expect, what is possible.
What is superior.
Yeah, they're not going to say, well, you know, we get great service from Nordstrom's, but these guys are only in this industry, so it's okay if service is mediocre there.
Right.
That doesn't work anymore. Customers don't compartmentalize their expectations like that. And so that's not to say that it's realistic or necessary that you meet that standard of the best companies in the world, but you can't rely on people giving you a pass because of whatever industry you happen to be in.
You know, one of the things too that we talked a lot about, which I'm really appreciative that you did, because it's something I like to talk about too, is that a lot of companies will spend more money and time on getting a customer than retaining a customer. And
crazy.
An increase in 5% of customer retention, you mentioned, could actually boost profits by 25 to 85%.
Yeah.
So how does that math work out?
There's a geometric impact to keeping customers because customers who stay longer tell other people, word of mouth, so then they attract even more customers at no expense. When you have higher retention, your marketing and advertising expenses go down. Right?
Because the cost of acquisition is not
yeah.
there.
And so it all kind of creates this ripple in the pond effect. There's an amazing stat from research that Adobe did that's not in the book because it happened since the book was published, that says that on average, now different industries are going to vary based on category, but in general, 80% of most companies' revenue comes from existing customers, okay? 80%. Most companies spend on average 2% of revenue on customer retention.
Okay.
So think about that. You're investing 2
to
keep 80.
Right.
That's crazy.
That is
like
nuts.
That's really, and look at it this way, okay? How many people are there, probably some watching right now, who have a master's degree, an MBA or something in sales and marketing?
Okay.
Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. Like there's a lot of MBAs with a concentration in sales and marketing. How many MBAs are there with a concentration in customer service and customer retention?
Yeah, it doesn't.
The answer is 0, right? There's lots of books out there about growth hacking. How many books are there about retention hacking? 0, right? And so just in general, we are putting too much emphasis on customer acquisition and not enough emphasis in customer retention. And I say that as a marketing consultant, right?
Well,
so if I say that, come on.
Do you think it's because people don't initially identify the problem? Because in marketing, they know they have a lead problem. But if everyone thinks they give great customer service, do they think they have a customer service problem?
I think it's because to really address retention, not only do you have to solve customer service problems, in many cases you have to solve a fundamental operational problem. And that's hard. Harder than going out and getting the next customer.
Another thing that I thought was pretty interesting, your research showed that men actually complain more often than women. It wasn't.
Does that surprise you?
I feel like
is your wife watching this show? Because I think you should just stop right now with this line. I think this is going to get you in real danger.
Not so much with the complaining. I just feel like my wife will speak her mind a little bit more.
It depends on the business. So
Okay.
what we found in the research, and I'm not certain that all these stats are in the book because there's a whole other study that we pulled from, but men are much more likely to complain about particular business types. So cable television, financial services, automotive. Women more likely to complain about restaurants, retail, things like that. So on the whole, men complain more. On the whole, men complain more, but it is very different based on type of business.
And you talk a lot about on-stage versus off-stage haters, right? So, well, first, let's define a hater.
Okay.
And then let's define what you mean by on-stage and off-stage, what the difference is.
So in the language of the book, when I say hater, I mean anybody who complains about your business. Now, just because somebody complains, are they a hater? No, but look, Hug Your Haters is a way better book title than Answer All Your Complaints, right? I mean, let's, okay, we all agree with that?
Yes.
So there's a reason why the book is called that. But when we say hater in the book, we just mean somebody who complains. Now, for a long time, like, I don't know, a couple thousand years, like since the time of Pompeii, businesses who had customers who were unhappy, who complained, all those interactions took place in private, right? Whether it was face-to-face, mostly back in the day, and then you could call or write a letter or send a telegram, I guess, or maybe a fax if you so chose, and then eventually email. That's all private, right? So if a customer complains and you treat that complaint and you embrace them, great. If you blow them off, okay, but nobody really knows what's happening, right? Now, more and more complaints are taking place what we call on stage as opposed to off stage. On stage means that those complaints happen in public, right? Okay. So social media, Facebook, Twitter mostly, some Instagram, ratings and review sites, so Yelp, TripAdvisor, Angie's List, HomeAdvisor, that whole kind of swath, and then discussion boards and forums. All of that is in public. Okay. The research shows that today, again, the data is going to vary by industry, but on average, 60% of complaints today are off-stage, phone, email. 40% are on-stage, social media, ratings and review sites, discussion boards, and forums. The big deal here, and the reason this book exists, frankly, is that when customer service becomes a spectator sport, which is what it is today, how you handle customers is more and more important because it has larger economic consequences for your business. Because if somebody complains and you do a terrible job of handling that complaint, or you blow them off, a bunch of people could see that, right? And then they maybe want to leave, or maybe they don't want to become a customer, right? So in that way, now that customer service is a spectator sport, more than ever, customer service is marketing.
One of the things you talk about is when customers complain in an offstage manner, they anticipate a reply.
Yes.
So if I'm complaining through email
or phone,
through phone, I'm expecting a reply.
It's just how business has evolved. Of the time. 91%. I mean, look, if you call a business, you anticipate they're going to call you back. If you email them, you anticipate they're going to email you back. Now, it may not happen as quickly as you'd like, but you're probably going to get an answer, right? And so when a business does that, you're not like, hell yeah, they emailed me back. You're like, well, yeah, they emailed me back.
Yeah, you just met expectations.
That's right.
That's
all right here, it's baseline.
You may be impressed at 9%.
Baseline, right.
Right, but on social media, on an on-stage manner, customers expect a response 42% of the time. Yep. So if you're able to respond 100% of the time, you are blowing the minds of 60% of the
That's
people.
Right. Yeah, because look, think about your own life. If you complain on Facebook or Twitter or Yelp or TripAdvisor or a discussion board committed to whatever industry, you kind of sort of maybe hope they'll get back to you, but you're not expecting it, right? You're not thinking, yep, they're definitely going to answer. Like maybe they will, maybe they won't, because that's just how business is today. And so when you do get that response, it's like, wow, these guys are paying attention. They're answering customers in all these different places. That's really fantastic. And it creates this advocacy bump that we actually measured in the book. We measured how much customers are more likely to advocate on your behalf when they get a response.
And we're going to go through a couple examples of complaints that you actually have in there that I really liked.
Excellent.
And also how these companies appropriately responded in the on-stage manner that actually delivered a favorable response. Because one of the things you talk about is customer advocacy.
Yep.
So define customer advocacy, and then how replying appropriately in an on-stage manner can not only affect it positively, but also defer it negatively.
Absolutely. So when we talk about customer advocacy, we actually measure that very particularly with a very specific methodology. Okay. So we used a variation of what's called the Net Promoter Score, which is a system that people may have heard of in some corners. And it's the one question that you typically ask customers that says, on a scale of 0 to 10, how likely are you to recommend our company to a friend or family member?
Now, those of you that are watching and listening in, you probably didn't know what he meant when he said Net Promoter Score if you didn't really hear that term before, but I'm sure most of you have already seen that question in the survey because it's the most popular and it's the most effective right now as well. But
Well, it gives you the one number. That is actually that concept, that 0 to 10 in that question was developed by the research consultancy Bain and a guy by the name of Fred Reichold who actually came up with that whole system. And now, of course, it's in place everywhere, right?
Right.
I just got an email a second ago from Delta Airlines, 0 to 10, what's your thing? Everybody sees it. So we use that same framework for measuring advocacy when people do or do not get a reply to a complaint. So if you complain to a business and they get back to you, they answer your complaint, it increases advocacy, meaning you are more likely to tell people, yeah, these guys are great. And if you don't get an answer, it decreases advocacy correspondingly, which stands to reason. It depends on the channel, but somewhere between 15 and 30% increase in advocacy if you get a reply, and as much as a 50% drop in advocacy if you don't get a reply, especially phone and email, because we talked about you expect a reply. So if you leave somebody a voicemail in a business complaint context and they don't get back to you,
well, and to get into stats,
and that happens all the time.
I took these stats from the book because I thought it was so great. So the three of them are responding to a customer phone complaint, an email complaint, and then anywhere on social media. So when you respond to a customer phone complaint, you increase the advocacy by 10%, which isn't that much.
Because you expect it.
Right. But if you don't, you reduce customer advocacy by 51%.
Yep.
By email, it's increase of 8%, not responding, reduce it by 56%. So relatively the same because, again, we expect it.
Yeah.
Responding to a complaint anywhere in social media has double the impact of answering the telephone, generating a 20% advocacy lift on average, but not responding to a complaint in social media decreases the customer advocacy by 43%.
Yep.
That's crazy. And one of the things, too, that I really liked is 32% of the people who have complained on social media are happy with the time it took to get a reply. That's despite that 63% of the complaints addressed were done within 24 hours.
Yep.
Today, 39% of people who complain on social media want to reply within 60 minutes, and the average is really just 5 hours.
Yeah, when we do consulting for companies in my organization, we really try to get everybody to, whenever possible, reply to all social media inquiries and complaints within 60 minutes. That way, you're keeping everybody happy, and if you just sort of set that as your goal, if you can execute on that, you're going to be in pretty good shape.
And people go to review sites to really commit. It's like their main hub of research because I can look at your website, but let's face it, what are you going to put on your website?
It's all positive testimonials.
Everything you want me to see, right?
Yeah.
And if I find stuff on YouTube or socials, all the stuff you want me to see.
You always want to gut check it, right? You always want to double check.
And review sites like Yelp and TripAdvisor, in
Google
particular,
reviews, huge.
Google reviews, it allows me to get a non-biased information from everybody.
Yeah.
And Bright Local did a research, and you said that people are trusting reviews as much as recommendations from a friend or family member, like online reviews. And it was like 80% of Americans.
It's actually up now. They redid the research. I think it's 82% now of Americans trust ratings and reviews, as long as they believe them to be authentic and it's on a good site. 82% trust ratings and reviews as much as they trust recommendations from somebody they actually know, which is weird, right? Because you don't know who these people are on these review sites. This guy could be a fool, but we sort of believe in that concept of the wisdom of the crowd, right? We're like, okay, yeah, enough people have experienced this product, this service, this whatever. I mean, geez, I buy stuff all the time online, all the time, and I can't imagine doing so without looking at reviews. Like, why would you? Like, who has so much cash laying around? Like, well, this could be a colossal mistake, but I don't care. I'm going for it. Like, everybody, is checking ratings and reviews all the time. And so many businesses, especially small businesses, are just terrible at ratings and reviews, right? They're bad at asking for them. When they get a negative one, they freak out, right? And they take it personally and they make it worse. It's just, it doesn't have to be that hard, but it is for a lot of people.
Well, one of the things you talk about as well, which I really like, and Simon Sinek talks a lot about this stuff when it comes to the chemicals in the brain when certain things happen.
Yeah.
And when you get a negative review, it releases, it's not just so much of all the ramifications that you think may come from it.
You go haywire.
Yeah, there's a chemical release called cortisol that actually will put you in a state of reacting quickly and
fight
not
or flight.
thinking.
Yeah.
Right, and that can last, you said, up to 26 hours.
Especially for small businesses, right? When you get a negative review, it's like somebody telling you your baby's ugly, right?
It is
and I mean,
exactly
it's
like that.
you know, and you're like,
Your business
you're
is your
like,
baby.
bro. And sometimes you sort of feel like maybe that customer is viewing you too harshly, or their experience or their perception of the experience is incorrect, or what have you. But here's the thing, like, their perception is their reality, right? And you can disagree all you want, but the problem I have with a lot of people and how they handle reviews is they think like they've got some sort of time machine. Like, by arguing it, they're going to change that customer's belief of what
or
actually
everyone
happened.
looking.
Yeah, right? It's like, look, you can't fix what's happened. You can't change the customer's perspective. They believe this. They believe the soup was cold.
Right.
If you're like, no, man, the soup was hot, like, okay, that's not going to fix it.
Their
right?
perception is real.
Yeah, exactly. It's their reality. So you cannot change what's happened, but you have total control over what happens next. Total control. And so you can choose to ignore it and just let it go, which is a terrible idea. You should answer every review, in my estimation. You can argue about it, which is not a good plan either. Or you can engage rationally and reasonably and apologize and try and get some more information and learn from it and move on.
One of the things I really want to share with everybody is where they should be spending a lot of their time. So for these on-stage reviews, review sites are the biggest venue for customer complaints at 55%. And Facebook holds 21% of the complaints. So that's the bulk of it.
Yeah, Facebook's a ton.
Yeah, and the majority is on other social platforms and forums. So why do you think Facebook, obviously they have the most volume, but what is it about that platform versus others that allows the on-stage haters to...
Well, on Twitter, I mean, obviously it's volume and it's time spent. But also people on Facebook, by definition, are connected to friends, many of whom may be thinking about experiencing or purchasing the same items, right? So it's not only, hey, are we going to complain on Facebook, but a lot of times it's sort of a warning shot. Like, I want to tell my friends, hey, I just had this experience with whatever, don't make that same mistake. Or, I really loved this particular experience, you guys should have that same experience. And so it's not always so much on Facebook where people are complaining at a company, right? Or, well, let me say it this way. They're not necessarily complaining to a company, they're complaining about a company on Facebook, right? And so they may tag them, but it's not so much, and that's why one of the reasons why you have this lower expectation for reply in social media, because it's not like, hey, Southwest Airlines fixed my problem. It's you just sort of griping about Southwest Airlines with your friends looking on.
Right, and you were saying a lot of people just want an audience.
Absolutely.
Right, so talk a little bit about that.
They just want to go off, right? And look, if we're going to call or email, if you're going to take the time to wait on hold and type out a whole email, you want an answer. Like, you have a thing and you need that thing fixed, right? It's a very linear conversation. If you're on social or even Yelp or something like that, in some cases you may just want an audience. You just want to spout off, right? You want other people to be like, yeah, you go get them, man. Yeah, you know, screw those guys. They're the worst, right? That's the worst flower shop in Texas or whatever. And so you sort of want this, like, this group empathy wave to sort of join you in your pitchfork and your torch. And that's why in some cases you'll see people writing things about businesses in social media and review sites that they probably wouldn't write in an email, right? It's a little more over the top. It's a little more aggressive because they're looking for other people to kind of chime in.
You talked earlier about when somebody leaves a bad review, it's like saying your baby's ugly, right?
Yes.
And we talked about, for these small business owners, these fitness studios, these spas, these salons, these places that are working their tail off to really deliver a superior service in what feels like a saturated market. They get one bad review, they feel like that's going to hurt their business. But you mentioned something really interesting, right? So talk about the stat about, it was like 2/3 of customers trust reviews when they see both good and bad.
Yeah. We talked earlier about how important reviews are in people making decisions now about everything. That's only true if they believe the reviews to be trustworthy. And what's interesting is that how people think about reviews as being trustworthy or not trustworthy is almost always dictated by the mathematical spread of those reviews. So if you've got all 5s, people are like, no way, man. There's no way it's all 5s. Somebody cooked the books here. They had
nearly
employees or friends.
95% of all consumers suspect censorship or fake reviews when they don't see any bad scores, according to research done by Review.
And the same is true for you and for me. I mean, if you see all 5s, like, there's no way. This has got to be fake.
Right.
So that's why it's actually good On this book, there's 108 Amazon reviews now as we're recording this. It's like 100 5 stars, 5 4 stars, and I think 2 1 stars that I love because it validates that these reviews are real, right? And so you actually want some negativity. It's not mathematically and from a authority standpoint, it's actually good news to have some negative ones.
Right. I want to read one of the reviews, one of the bad reviews now. Okay. And then I want to go into how this person replied and see what everybody thinks.
Okay.
Too bad there wasn't a ranking worse than terrible. This is for a hotel. That's right. Too bad the ranking wasn't worse. There wasn't a ranking worse than terrible. If you plan to stay here, don't expect to sleep. There's a bar with noisy music that goes until 2 a.m. Noisy bar patrons, and the hotel doesn't care. Front desk claims there was nothing they could do about the music roaring or the rowdy patrons screaming in the parking lot all night. So that's a tough review to swallow.
I think I've stayed at that hotel. That's not a review from me, but I've experienced that kind of hotel for sure. Yeah.
So the reply
that was on TripAdvisor, I think, that review.
Yes.
Yeah.
The reply was excellent.
Yeah.
And it was, I would like to personally apologize for this series of unfortunate incidents that you experienced during your stay with us. We continually try to do our very best for all of our guests, but unfortunately, sometimes we do fail. I will look into each issue that you have noted in an attempt to correct and improve our hotel policies. I would invite you to contact me personally at phone number to discuss this with you further or email me. Regards, Murray Waiters, hotel manager. So tell me about that response and why that was so great.
Well, he doesn't debate the fact that this happened, number one, which is the first mistake that a lot of people make in review response. They're like, well, that's not true. Like, well,
or they passive aggressively
true to them, right? Yeah, or
take ownership.
Exactly.
I've seen
right.
that too.
So he apologizes, thanks that person for the feedback, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a second. Says that is going to take it, going to actually do something about it. Uses the word policies in there, which I don't love. I prefer that wasn't there. It's not a very customer-friendly word, but that's a quibble. Uses it personally, is truly sorry or appears to be sorry. Thanks them for the feedback, says he's going to do something about it, gives them a contact mechanism to follow up, and it's from somebody who's authoritative in the organization, right? It's from the manager of the hotel.
Right.
Here's my personal email address and my actual name. So it kind of checks all the boxes where you actually feel better about that, don't you? I mean, you just read it, like you feel better about that organization. Now, if you read that on TripAdvisor, you'd be like, okay, I understand sometimes they've got some noise issues, but this guy's on top of it. If you read that review and saw no reply, you'd be like, I don't think I want to stay there.
Right.
Right.
And one thing I like to, and a lot of people do this, we talked about the passive aggressive ownership.
Yes.
Sometimes there's a big difference between I'm sorry this happened versus I'm sorry you feel this way. That basically means it didn't happen.
Or I apologize if you feel some way. It's like, well,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so last example I want to go through, this was for, it wasn't even addressed as ice cream. It was as a dessert.
Oh yeah, this is a great one.
Frozen dessert.
I use this one on stage a lot in my speaking about the book. Yeah, it's one of my classic examples. Great one.
He said in his complaint, just bought this hoping to enjoy some ice cream while on a low carb diet. Too bad this ice cream, I put in quotes because it tastes nothing like ice cream other than being cold, is absolutely disgusting. I got the cookie dough version, and literally licking the freezer burned ice shavings from the inside of the freezer would probably taste better than this. It's definitely going back to the store for a refund.
Yes.
The reply was excellent. Sorry to, the name of the person that wrote it was, his title was Random Musings of a Barefoot Libertarian Democratic Hippie.
Yes, that was on Facebook. Yeah.
So the reply was, sorry to hear this, Random Musings. While Wink, which is the name of the company, is definitely not ice cream, we do aim for an ice cream-like experience. The creator of Wink is a 25-year-old named Gabe who has celiac disease and dairy intolerance. We do recommend letting your pint sit out for a few minutes before you dig in. If the store you purchased Wink in gives you trouble with the refund, please let us know. While we hope that everyone will love and enjoy Wink as much as we do, we realize that not everyone will. If we can help, please send an email to info@winkfrozendesserts.com. Thanks for giving Wink a try.
Unbelievable, right? You're like, great. Now I want to go buy some of that just because it was such a good response. And this guy completely puts them on blast. they're like, hey, thanks for giving it a try. We
Right.
really appreciate you taking the time to even, sample it. And what I love about that one in particular, Mike, is they use it as an opportunity to tell their story. So they use the response. Oh, let me tell you about Gabe. He's our founder. He's 25. He has celiac disease and dairy intolerance. He built this product because he wanted something to eat, and it's not for everybody. But they use their response as a way to tell a brand story,
which was
and
excellent.
they did it in a way that's not sketchy, right? That's not like, all right, these guys are trying to sell me something, but they understand, right? What Wink understands is that customer service is a spectator sport, so they're not going to get this guy back as a customer. He hated it, but they can neutralize him while also communicating something to the other people who are looking on that helps them build the brand. Really good example.
One of the things too, Jimmy Kimmel has a popular segment called Celebrities Read Mean Tweets.
So great.
And if you guys
the
haven't
best.
seen it, it's really funny. You can go to YouTube and type in Celebrities Read Mean Tweets, and it's basically like an Al Pacino or Brad Pitt would basically have people tweeting
It's become a whole
negative
thing.
things.
The Dallas Cowboys have done it now.
Right. And so
everybody does it now.
People are reading it. And so now you talk about some businesses that are using this same style to actually reply to negative reviews using video. So talk about that last thing before we head out.
Well, I think in general, the more human you can be in your reply, the better off it is. Like we trust people. We don't trust companies. In fact, Nielsen will tell you that we trust individuals twice as much as we trust companies. So the more that you can make your response feel like it comes from a person. We talked about Murray, the general manager from the hotel a couple minutes ago, right? That works partially because it's Murray. It's not from the hotel, it's from Murray. And video is the very best way to do that same thing because it is by definition human, right? It's not a video of a logo talking to you, although that would be weird. It's a video of a person talking to you. So the more that you can address negative comments or even positive comments for that matter, with video, the more warm and human and sympathetic you become. So there's lots of ways to do that. You can do it on Twitter, you can do it on YouTube, you can do it on Facebook. There's a lot of ways you can do it in email. There's lots of ways you can use video in a customer service context, and I'm glad to see more companies starting to do that.
According to Jay's book and the research he's done, $500 billion each year is invested into marketing, getting new customers, compared with just $9 billion invested in customer service. So businesses spend that much more on getting customers and keeping customers. Everybody that knows Jay, everybody that knows me knows that we're huge advocates in marketing and advertising and lead generation. That's excellent, but your marketing can mean so much more. Your return on investment could be so much more if
you're not losing guys out the back door, right? I mean,
right.
It's pretty tough. It makes marketing pretty tough.
Because it's all about your lifetime customer value.
If you're constantly doing this. Yeah, if you're running on this treadmill, it's hard.
It's very hard. So marketing is great, and I know it's exciting, but really, really work hard on looking at some of the people like Nordstrom's and some of the people that you mentioned as the leaders and find out ways that you can get inspired by some of these guys to deliver a much, much better, superior customer service.
Yeah, and I just want to make sure people understand, I'm not suggesting that you bend over backwards. I'm not saying that the customer is always right and whatever the customer wants is fine. That's not what I'm saying. Customer's not always right. Sometimes the customer is totally wrong. What I am saying, though, is that the customer should always be heard.
Absolutely.
Right? That is in your best interest to reply to all customer complaints. It's in your best interest to make sure that people know that you care about their feedback. That doesn't mean if somebody has some sort of outlandish request, you're like, okay, well, the customer says, so we're going to give them a free year or whatever. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that instead of ignoring people, you can use it to your advantage and answer them and turn it into marketing.
And it was like less than 5% of people actually wanted something free.
That's right.
Through their complaint. Most people really just wanted to be heard, or some sort of resolution, right? So everybody, Jay Baer is excellent. He is the expert when it comes to customer service and using social media in order to really take that to another level. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thanks.
Thanks so much for watching or listening, and we will see you next time.
Thank you so much for joining us today. If you like this episode, then subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher, and to our YouTube channel to never miss an episode. You can get all the links by going to boldshow.com. Thanks, and see you next time.